Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burckhardt. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is October 8th, 2025, and welcome to another hauntingly good read for the Halloween season. Yes, I do get a little weird this time of year. I love Halloween. If you had lived in my neighborhood back in Kansas, you would have known whenever October 1st hit, because I started pulling out trunks of Halloween decorations. I had everything from an inflatable hearse to tombstones. I had about 8 full-size skeletons, and I even made 3 little statues that looked like trick-or-treaters in costumes. I mean, I went all out every year. And since living here in Germany, they don't do that kind of thing, I just have to have fun with all of the scary movies that I can absorb. And of course, wonderfully haunting reads. And today's author has a fantastic Southern Gothic tale that you are just going to absolutely love. It is perfect to read this time of year. But don't take my word for it. Let's bring out today's guest and let her tell you all about it. And just a quick note, as we get into this interview today, there are a few bleeped words. Check the description of today's podcast. You'll be able to figure out what they are. But because of different censor trigger words, we do have to do this every once in a while. But for now, please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, J.E. Weiner. I love to just start these out by having our guests tell everyone who you are and what you do.
My name is J.E. Weiner. I am a debut author in the Southern Gothic genre and just released my first novel in March of 2025. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about it.
I actually had a difficult time finding much on your personal background when I went to do some investigating about you. I was just wondering, especially since you go by just your initials, J.E., do you try and keep a hard line between your work life and your personal life?
I actually do. So I consider myself to have 3 names. I have my day job name, I have my mom name, and I have my writer name. And part of that is to kind of keep it compartmentalized in a very busy life that I lead. And there's also something to writing under initials, particularly in the overlapping Western genre, that some of the themes that I address are things that I'm okay if people don't know if I'm a woman or a man.
Well, I wrote my Westerns under the name Stephen Burckhardt. So
Well,
it can be beneficial to be thought of as a man writing Westerns.
yeah, I just thought, there's nothing wrong with a little mystery. And I did want to have a different name for my writing life, for sure.
Your book, The Wretched and Undone, is considered a Southern Gothic, but that can actually have many different meanings to different people. What
Sure.
does it mean to you in the world of your fiction that you created?
Well, I did not start out intentionally saying, I want to write a Southern Gothic novel. I wrote the novel I wanted to write, and then the genre came through that process of writing. I don't think of it as strictly in the lane of Southern Gothic. I think it's a mashup. I think it's a mashup of traditional Southern Gothic with a tip of the hat, pun intended, to the classic Western. And also just given where I grew up and the things I love to read, there's a healthy dose of Texas noir here. But I think it leans heaviest into the Southern Gothic lane. And for me, it really was important to think about forces that drive, influence, befuddle, confound my characters that weren't necessarily bound by this world. And I've always been drawn to the supernatural. And I think that that license one is given to think about forces beyond this world as contributors to driving a story is something that felt very comfortable to me.
That is perfect that you mentioned it right at that time, because my next question was, I was going to tell you, I was so looking forward to this interview with you because I know that you talk about you being a magnet for ghosts. And I actually lived in a actively haunted house for many years when I was a teenager, and even did ghost hunting whenever I was in college.
Oh,
So
wow.
I felt that your comment was such a strong statement, and I wanted to know how your experiences with the supernatural made their way into your work.
So it came through personal family experiences. And it's hard. I'm trained as an historian, someone who lives in a world of facts
Mm-hmm.
and narrative that one can prove, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And there are just some things that can't explain. They tend to happen to the women in my family, my sisters, my mother, my grandmother, and we never talked about them when we were younger. And only now, as adult women, we've shared some stories and connected some dots. And at one point before my grandmother passed away, she even fessed up to having some experiences. My mother still hasn't come around to that yet, but my sisters and I have definitely shared some of our stories. And one of those ghost stories was the inspiration for this novel. I'm happy to tell it if you want me to.
Oh, I definitely do. Yes.
So, my sister bought a ranch on Texas Highway 16, just in a lonely stretch between Bandera, Texas and Medina, Texas. And it's a beautiful, pass along the Medina River. And we spent many, many Christmases and summer cousin get togethers on her ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, over probably one too many glasses of red wine, she said, "Guys, I got to tell you, there's something going on in this place." And she shared a series of stories. One that had happened when she first moved in and she was very pregnant, bringing groceries in. And there was a woman in her front yard watching her. And she first thought it was just out of the corner of her eye. But then she started moving towards her and then just walked past. And she was dressed in sort of 1800s looking clothes, turn of the century looking clothes. She was very pregnant at the time. She thought, it's hormones. I'm tired. I'm going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
About a year later, heard her husband shouting out through the kitchen window, "Get in here. You will catch your death of cold. What are you doing out there?" And she walks out from the other side of the house and her husband turns pale. And he said, "Were you just out in the front yard?" And she said, "No, I wasn't." He goes, "I could have sworn you were out in the front yard in your nightgown."
Oh,
And the way he described the figure was the same thing she had seen. And sometime later, I don't exactly know the timeline, they had a nanny who was with them when she had little kids. And the nanny was like, I'm out of here. I can't take it anymore. She's driving me nuts. And she said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Well, I woke up this morning. The woman in white is standing over me, holding out papers. I don't know what she wants, but I can't do this anymore." So
that's wild.
and she described the very same woman that my brother-in-law had seen and my sister had seen. And so she tells this story, and of course there's some other ghost stories in our family. And I thought, who is this woman? What happened? And why won't she leave?
Mm-hmm.
Sometime later, we were in this little store, and in Texas towns, they have like the ghosts of or the history of these little books that are self-published,
Oh,
usually
yeah.
local presses. Anyway, open up a book, Ghosts of Bandera, or something called something like that. And there's a story about a murder suicide on my sister's ranch that had happened at the turn of the 20th century. And there had been stories of a woman who had paraded the grounds. So it was really interesting. So I was like, I got to write a book about this.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's great. Now, are there any experiences that you've ever had that you would not put in a book?
Ghost related,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming. Um, Yeah, I mean, there's some things that have happened to one of my other sisters that are pretty unsettling, and they're places you don't want to go. So
Yeah.
that I did not put those in there.
And that makes sense. I get that.
Yeah.
The Anderwalds cross paths with an unusual mix of people, from different immigrant families to camel drivers, wounded soldiers, and a woman teetering on the edge of madness. What pulled you toward bringing so many different kinds of characters into your story?
Well, what's really interesting is as I started to unpack Bandera, which again, you go there and it has this slightly kitschy feel to it, cowboy capital of the world. But
Mhm.
it is a name that just evokes history of the cattle trade, right? So it actually is born out of history. Texas also, over the course of that history, was this really interesting, incredible crucible and crossroads that don't necessarily fall into certain sort of presumptions about the South. And particularly around the Civil War, there were lots of communities there that sort of lived and coexisted. And so as I discovered some of these quirky characters in the historical record, I thought, you know what? no one knows these stories. Very few people know about the Camel Corps. Very few people know that six broadly defined Arabs, it was a sort of a monolithic term that they used for them, had been brought over from various points in the Middle East to tend to these animals and then just got stranded there. So that was really very interesting. I think there were also lots of, I would say, confused and conflated Unionist versus Confederate sympathies. Like it was a real melting pot of both Unionist and Confederate allegiances during the time. And so it made for really interesting political and political violence dynamics.
Mhm.
Then I also think that it was a place that did have that kind of frontier mentality. And so bringing all of that together was important. Now, the woman on teetering on the verge of madness is someone who is drawn as an amalgam character of some folks in my family's life. But that also was telling the story of a time when mental illness was not really accepted. Certainly not to go into too much detail, but this is a character that lives in an abusive relationship and world. A lot of that just wasn't spoken of. And so that was
Mhm.
sort of an important story for me to tell as well.
Well, and I love whenever somebody goes and actually does research and pulls actual historical facts into their fiction, because I think that's a great learning opportunity. And I wrote a Western series and I did a lot of research. Most of it was in Kansas, but I did have to do some research on Texas. I never read anything about the Camel Corps. I did not know that. So whenever I was seeing this in your stuff, I'm like, that is so cool. I am so glad that you did that kind of research and put those kinds of facts in your work. I think it's fantastic.
Well, I have to give a tip of the hat to the Portal of Texas History and the Texas Historical Association. They have just done incredible work to put resources up online. Where the book opens is at the Frontier Times Museum in Bandera, which still exists to this day. I did a book launch event there.
Oh, nice.
Amazing people who have collected everything from quirky memorabilia of the area through to spurs from the original ranchers in town through to cattle brands. But they also have collected these rich photos and oral histories and other things that were tremendous resources for the research.
One of the things that I think is so great about that is whenever people are reading, they're enjoying the story, but they're also getting a passive education. And they don't even register the fact that they're getting this historical education because it's just blended in with the story.
That's part of what I love. And as an academic, on the academic side of my life, being trained as an historian, I used a lot of oral history and memoir in writing that I did academically. And so the power of that, I think, is so important, particularly to tell stories of people who don't make the headlines.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You have a really good track record of being a successful writer. You were writing articles and different kinds of essays and creative nonfiction. What was it that made you step into the realm of fiction and write a book?
So I think that for me, it was an opportunity to world build out of whole cloth. I mean, it has historical tethering, right? It's tethered to actual historical events, but to create something out of whole cloth was something that just has been an ache in me for some
Mhm.
time. I ghostwrite speeches and talking points and things like that in my working life, and that's really interesting and intellectually engaging. I've gotten a master's in Russian history. It didn't really help me researching this book, but and doing that kind of writing is also really intellectual and satisfying. Creative nonfiction was just toe in the water to just be able to tell a story, and it was easier to do that just about something real that happened in my own life, just to try to tap into sort of that creative spark. But the artistry, the place you go to in your mind to write fiction, it's just been a siren's call to me, really. And I wanted to try. So I did.
I did happen to notice your degree, the Russian studies. Did you actually learn Russian for that?
I did. I did. Although I learned Russian before I went to graduate school. I won't say when I graduated from college, but I when it was that and Japanese. That probably tells you all you need to know. Were the two hot languages at the time. And Japanese was at 8 a.m. and Russian was at 10 a.m. So I took Russian. And it was also just a fascination. And my family really didn't travel much, if at all, and really not at all outside the United States. And so I wanted to go somewhere kind of exotic. And to do that, I had to learn a language. And I fell in love with it. I just had a teacher my first year of Russian in college, and she just, it's one of those things that just clicked, and I became very passionate about it. And I worked as a caseworker with Russian emigres for a number of years before I do what I do now.
That's really amazing. And I ask this because I actually took Russian in college. And
Ah,
about the only thing that I can remember how to say is "Skazhelenie, я не знаю." But at least that's something useful to say, right?
it's absolutely, that's all kind of you need to know. Да, нет, and к сожалению, я не знаю. So unfortunately, I don't know. That's funny.
So now I think is the perfect time for you to tell us about your book.
Yeah. Well, so the way I think of it, and of course, authors both love and dread this question. There's a lot of pressure. Like, when is your
Yeah.
book? But I see this as the story of this family, the Anderwald family, who comes to Bandera, Polish immigrants who are fleeing chaos and violence in their world, seeking fertile soil freedom, only to find out as they arrive on the dawn of the Civil War that there's even a land seething even more deeply in violence and chaos that they've come to. They don't
Mhm.
speak the language, they don't understand the politics or the what's at stake, and it's a very confusing time. And so I wanted to tell that story. I think The Wretched and Undone ultimately is a love letter to the Texas Hill Country, where I still have many family and spend a lot of time. But it's a blistering love letter, to be sure, because it's a hard-nosed telling. It's not an easy book. It's not a feel-good book. It's a hard-nosed telling of a story of a place, a people, a family who built something out of nothing over the course of a really complicated and sometimes unbecoming time in our history of the United States. So I see it as a Bandera story. I see it as a Texas story, but I also see it as a quintessential American story, right? It's immigrants fleeing oppression and looking for a new land of opportunity. It is the forging of the American frontier that is so central to our notions of ourselves as a nation, and the hardship and grit and determination that took. It's also something about the power of faith, family, community, however you define those three things, that drew me to this story. And I think it's about the strength and the durability of the human spirit. I mean, there are forces out there that beyond our control of this world and not, they
Yeah.
threaten everything we know to be right and true. They turn us against ourselves and each other. They threaten our moral compasses, throw those off kilter. So what's righteous, what's sinful, what's good, what's evil, what is faith, and what is loss of faith? Those were the sort of questions I thought about, and we just as humans are flawed. But I think it's hopeful at the end of the day, even though the title is The Wretched and Undone. And the reason I say that is because all of us are plagued by demons, and we all need angels to help us and show us a path to peace. And I do think, despite it all, the Underworld's gut it out and they rise from the ashes time and time again. And so my hope is that this is a story of hope.
Well, and your book has already been earning quite a few accolades. You've got both a Killer Nashville top pick and a Claymore Award finalist. What do getting this kind of accolades, what does that mean to you personally?
Oh, I do think most authors are, I mean, being creative and putting art out into the world is the hardest thing I have ever done. It is the most raw place to be personally out there. And so to have your work recognized when you know how hard you worked and how much effort you put into it means the world. And it's a rough world out there. There are a lot of people who just are lying in wait to tear you down. And I think
Yeah.
when there are these moments of support and recognition, it makes everything else fade away.
It always makes me think of Sally Fields won the Oscar and she's up there going, "You like me. You really like me." Whenever I got my first writing award, I so understood her in that moment. And it's like, "You like my work. You like my writing. That means so much."
Yeah. Well, and you get reviews, right? Reviews on Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, bookshop.org, whatever's out there in the review world. And unfortunately, it's really hard to remember the good ones. You only remember the bad ones.
Mhm.
And you have to kind of stop and be like, wait a minute, let's go back and look at this holistically. But it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to learn how to take everything with a grain of salt because I remember I actually have up on my bulletin board beside my desk, like, the worst review that I ever got. My books are novellas. They're a cliffhanger series,
Uh-huh.
And they gave me like a 3-star rating and said too short, ends in a cliffhanger. I'm like, okay, it's a novella and it's advertised as a cliffhanger serial. So basically, they just counted me down for exactly what I market them as.
You got what I advertised.
Exactly. But I keep that up on my bulletin board to remind me of that,
Yeah.
that sometimes the bad reviews don't make sense.
I'll just say there's one out there. It's like I didn't read past page X
Uh-huh.
and went on to write this like really scathing review of the book. And I'm thinking, how do you have all this negative to say? You don't even know what the book's about.
Yeah.
So that one, I do laugh about that one.
Now seems like the perfect time to do our 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but I'm too nosy to stop doing it. Are you
Awesome.
ready?
I'm ready.
Question 1. Now, lots of authors go on podcasts to promote their work, but do you listen to any podcasts regularly? Not including this one, of course.
Mm. So I listen to the New York Times podcast because I don't have time to watch the news. And so I do listen to that when I walk or get outside sometimes, try to kill two birds with one stone.
It's a good
Um,
one.
there's this really, I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's this really creepy one that I've just started. And it's about folks who are on the spectrum and telepathy and these stories of communication and the way in which people on the spectrum communicate, think, and process information. And it is fascinating and of course, now that you asked me that, I can't remember the name. But if you go out there and Google just autism and telepathy, you would find it. That one has been really great. I think those are the two primary currently.
Question 2. What is one vacation destination that you will never get tired of?
Oh, Paris.
Oh, yeah, good answer.
That's a one word answer.
When was the last time you were there?
Oh, it's been about 10 years. It's been a
Oh,
while. Too long. Since before the pandemic.
okay, yeah. Yeah, you got to go back.
Yeah, for sure.
Question 3. You have said that ghosts are drawn to you, but what about animals?
Definitely not cats. Cats, me. They find me repugnant, so I find that repugnant. I am so club dog. I just love dogs, and I find that they sense that and they come to me. So,
And that's a good animal to have come to you.
yes, yes. I'm very anti-rodent or anything in the rodent food chain, so I'm going to go with dogs.
I do have to admit I'm kind of fond of rats. Not like out in the wild, like pet rats.
Nope. Never.
One of my nephews actually used to have a pet rat named Elvis.
Mm. Yeah, well, I will never have a pet rat, that's for sure.
Question 4. What is one thing you are deeply passionate about?
I am deeply passionate about my children
Ah,
and
good answer.
the responsibility I have to them to let them become their own people and guide them when asked or occasionally when not asked. And just to see how they are turning out is really wonderful. And I love being part of an active part of their lives. That's something I'm very passionate about as my kids, because gosh, we need some help for the future here. we
Hmm.
got some we need some help. So that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about my writing. It is my happy place. It is my place of solace, my place of joy, my place of inner reflection, my place of pain. So I think it is where I can be my true self is in my writing.
So now for your last question, I'm asking every author the same question because I'm trying to create a database that is going to go in our year-end book buying guide as a
Mm.
recommendation of books to read from authors to readers. So when someone asks you for a book recommendation, who is the first author you always think of?
Cormac McCarthy is always my first.
Is there a reason why?
I think he's probably been one of the most influential writers to me. I don't write anything like him. He
Mm.
writes very terse and I can't, it makes me nuts that he doesn't use quotation marks. But the themes and the ambiance of his work, the way he uses language is very compelling to me. And I do have a darker side to the way that I like to write. I have a more macabre bent in the way I think about stories too. And so I do find him to be incredibly inspirational, but hard, but hard. He's hard to read. So that's the first, I would say.
Where is a good place that people can find more information on you and your work?
Everyone is welcome to follow me on Instagram at Weiner Author or on Facebook at Weiner. And on my website, jeweiner.com, are the best places. I do my very best to keep all those things up to date and with the latest information, including some exciting news about what's next for the Wretched and Undone. I'm excited for that. And also future work.
Do you have anything in the plans right now for another book?
I do. I can officially say I have started my second novel. It will live in the same orbit as The Wretched and Undone. It is not a sequel, but it is happening roughly at the same time. I think some of the characters might come back for some cameos in the book, but it is centered around a still to this day unsolved mystery of a mass hanging outside of Bandera County at the end of the Civil War. It's a mystery.
Do you have any personal appearances coming up?
I do. I am presenting at an event at Stanford University. It is a feature called Stanford Medicine and Humanities series in the Stanford Health Library. And I am appearing on October 20th for a book event that features my writing mentor, teacher, Lynn Stegner, who is an award-winning author and writer in her own right, but someone who I've worked with for many years, and she's going to be interviewing me on this book that I started in her class.
That sounds fascinating. That would be so cool. Is it open to the public? Can people go
It's
to this?
completely open to the public. It's up on my website at jeweiner.com. It's in hybrid format. It'll be on Zoom, but also live at
Oh,
Stanford.
nice. So people can log in from just about anywhere.
People can log in, and if you follow me, news about an audio book version of The Wretched and Undone will soon be released, and so I'm very excited about that.
Did you narrate?
I did not. It's interesting. Everyone asked me. So the narrator of the book is a 90-year-old man, and I really felt like it needed to be a man. So it's a male narrator.
Well, and that's one of those things too, that one of the guys that I just interviewed, his main character is a man, but he had a woman do his audiobook because in the second book of his series, there is a main character that is a female, and he felt that she would do a better job reading as a male attitude than having a man read an entire book as a woman's attitude. And I thought that his reasoning was really interesting. So I love asking people, why they don't do their own narration, because there are so many different answers for all the different authors. It's really fascinating.
So I thought about it, but then I kind of wanted someone with a little distance from it.
Mhm.
I hear the narrator in my head. It is the kind of classic cowboy poet
Mhm.
cadence and the way they speak and the sort of tall tale flavor of the way the story is told. And I just felt like it would come out better with a male voice. Now, my next book will have a female primary protagonist, will be female. And so maybe I'll read that one. Maybe I'll do that one.
Well, and one thing too, I don't think people realize exactly how long it takes to actually record an entire novel.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is a lot of work. I recorded the audio for my first book, and that was only 100 pages. It was like 120 pages. It
Yeah.
took several days of doing nothing but recording.
Mm.
And after that was done, then it was all the edits and re-recordings for things that didn't work. And it's incredible how much work goes into it to have it come out even halfway decent.
Yeah. That was also factored into the decision in terms of having the time to do it. And, I wanted some distance. I wanted something that to hear it through someone else's voice too. That also sounded good.
Well, and it's really fascinating whenever you listen to the way that somebody interprets your work in their reading. It gives it a whole different feel than what you have whenever you're reading it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I read out loud, I do a little bit of a reading whenever I present in public. And this woman came up to me and she goes, "Listen, I'm Polish, so no offense, but you have to say it slightly differently." And it was just a little tweak of something, like it was a softer V as opposed to a harder V. It was
Uh-huh.
just really interesting. But I was like, you know what? Good for you. You should tell me that because I want to get it right.
Mhm. This has been so much fun. I am so glad that we got to do this because ever since I first got the application for yours and I read the synopsis of your book, I have been dying to have this conversation. And I thought you would be so perfect for part of our hauntingly good reads for October. I think everybody should go out and get this book because it would be a great October read. Or, anytime, but especially now.
Thank you. This has been really super fun.
So there you have it, folks. My incredible interview with the wonderful J.E. Weiner. Be sure to go to her website, check out her book, follow along because I am positive that there are going to be a lot more wonderful things coming from this author in the future. And as always, all of her information is going to be in the description of today's podcast, as well as on our website at burckhartbooks.com/podcast. Now, next week, I'm going to be joined by author Tricia Copeland, and we're going to discuss her Realm Chronicle books. The first book in this series, To Be a Fey Queen, is a 2024 Gold Global Book Award recipient and a 5-star Reader's Favorite Book choice. We talk about this book as well as all of the other books in this series and some of the other work that she has done under different pen names and how she is coming together to consolidate everything going forward with her writing career. This is another hauntingly good read series, and you do not want to miss this podcast. As far as all things Book Banter related and Burckhardt books, just kind of working on all of the same projects that we've been talking about. I'm getting ready to purchase the Flipbook program, and we're going to be putting up all of our magazines back online. Right now, we're kind of an in-between place where our subscription to our hosting service has ended, and now I'm trying to put all of our new computer programs in place so that we can start hosting this stuff ourselves. And in the next week, I should be getting all of the back issues back up online available on our website at burckhartbooks.com. And we will be going forward with this year's Book Banter Magazine Year-End Holiday Shopping Guide that will feature every author that appeared on the podcast this season so that you can easily find all of their work, follow along, and help to fill out any of your gift lists that include readers, because we will have lots of wonderful books for you to choose from when you go shopping this year. We're also going forward with our work in the Haunted Heart series, a new paranormal romance series that we're working on, coming from D.S. Stevens. If you go to burckhartbooks.com, you can find out more about this. Join our mailing list so you can keep up to date on all of these great things as they become available, because there's so much stuff going on, it's hard to keep up with it all. We've got an app that we're working on so that people can go buy books through the app from all of our authors who have been on our podcast. We're working on a masterclass to help teach people how to market their own books, how to be a good guest on a podcast, how to prepare your media package, write one-sheets and press releases so that you can effectively connect with the media that you want to promote your work. We've got so much stuff going on right now, and yeah, I'm just really busy, so I'm going to get back to it. And in case you're wondering about what's going on with me, I'm sort of in limbo right now. I just had another MRI on my leg on Monday. I see the doctor again on Friday, so hopefully next week I'll know more about what's going on, and maybe I can get permanently off of bed rest because I'm not only going crazy, but I think I'm starting to take my husband with me. So think good thoughts for all of us here. And next week, be sure to come back for another wonderful episode with a fantastic author and more hauntingly good reads this October. So now you know what time it is, folks. It's time for you to go forth, enjoy some fall weather if you have some good weather where you are, and be really happy.